Alright, so we're back with Season 3, Episode 2. Today we're going to do some maintenance on the transmissions and do fuel filters on the main engines. Relatively simple maintenance task today. I'm sure I'm going to make a mess. Let's get to it. Alright, so when we're going to do the transmission fluid, we're going to suck all the fluid we can out of the dipstick. Then there's a drain plug at the bottom and a second plug where the screen is. So there's no replaceable filter on the ZF280s, but there is a pickup screen, and you do want to check those for debris. So I'll show you what you're going to need for that to get those pulled out, how to clean them, and put everything back together. Let's get down in the engine room and get to work. Today's materials for the job are pretty straightforward. Rotella T1 SAE30, some Racor fuel filters, 10 micron, and the trusty suction pump manual method. You know, it gets the job done. Well, let's jump down in there and start draining fluid. Alright, so pretty straightforward. Just pull the dipstick out, set that aside, take your suction hose to the suck pump, and let her rip. You do want to make sure the straw is as straight down as possible. Like, you know, these plastic hoses like to curve. So, you know, when it starts to bubble, like it's got all the fluid out, I'll straighten the hose out and kind of stick it back in there a couple times. So I'm going to let this do its thing. It will fill up this whole thing, I think, you know, at least once, if not twice, but I've got a drain pan to dump this as it fills. But I'm going to pull the fuel filters out here while this is going. We'll get that done as well. And I've got, you know, my waste bucket. I did have a ton of extra hose set up, and all that did was create more restriction and more flow issues. So you do want this pretty much as short as possible. I'm going to try to do this without having to need to pre-fill this back up. So before I break this seal, I'm going to open this up down here and make sure there's no water, so we can drain that off first. So there was a little bit of water, and then switched over right to red diesel there. So that is the first thing I do, is drain some of that off. Just for a couple seconds there. Really, as soon as the water stops, if there is any, you're pretty much good to go there. So I'm going to have my fuel filter at the ready here. This is a genuine Racor 10 micron. Highly recommend only getting genuine. Try not to get any knockoffs off the internet or anything like that. It's just not worth it when you're running the boat and you don't want to have any issues. Just genuine parts wherever you can get them. Okay, so we've got our little O-ring for the T-handle and our O-ring for the lid itself. Alright, it's kind of good to go there. And you're gonna need some sort of pick, usually, to get this apart. So what I'm gonna do is take the handle out first and go ahead and swap this O-ring, and you can definitely see it deforms over time. So that's why, obviously, why they include them. Super easy to do. Pull it off, and new one goes back on. So the T-handle is now ready to go. New O-ring. I've got this O-ring still in my hand. Alright, pop the lid off, and we've got fuel right at the top there. And I don't think it's rising, because I've had that happen before without fuel shutoffs. I think the shutoffs are on the tanks on this boat, so it's not the most convenient, but if you do it quick, I think we should be okay. So new O-ring, and that's all seated flat. I want that to be flat all the way around. So that's good. Let's get this fuel filter out of here. Just splashed diesel in my face. Everyone loves that. And away we can go into the bucket. Doesn't look terrible. I mean, definitely has some junk in it for sure, but definitely not the worst I've ever seen. You know, some debris. So it's doing its job is the bottom line. And for those who are worried about the fuel that's still in the bowl, well, how this works, the fuel goes in from the outside and then filter down and out. So all this fuel that's still in here will have to be filtered before it goes to the engine. And I'm going to carefully stick that in there and try not to splash it all over myself. All right. So fuel's about right here. It's not terrible. We'll see how that does when we run the engines. We've got a manual primer as well, but it should be okay. Yeah, I mean, it's almost to the top there. All right. Boom. Changing the Racor is that easy, and the transmission's been pumping fluid the whole time while we've been talking and doing that, so we are multitasking. But as far as this filter, I mean, definitely picked up some, I don't want to call it sludge, but let's just say it did its job. It's filtering junk out of the diesel, whatever is in these tanks. I mean, this boat's not super old, it's 2001, but still plenty of time for things to go astray. So having clean fuel filters, definitely a way to go. And I haven't had any issues with clogging, so I'm running 10 mic here. Some people say run 30 and then run your 2 to 4 micron at the engine. I've been running 10 and haven't had any issues yet. I am going to get vacuum gauges here to double check that, but I like to run the 10 micron here. Alright, we've got a little over 3 quarts of fluid extracted into the waste jug there. The next challenge is the 36 millimeter screen plug. Let me just say that you're probably going to need some leverage. And once you get enough leverage on it, that will break loose. And that is where the screen is. I need to get a wrench to get this drain plug off right here for the rest of the fluid. So I'm going to grab a couple solo cups to catch this fluid and try to mitigate a mess on the bottom of the boat. Alright, so I was able to He-Man the 36 millimeter filter screen loose, the 7/8, or probably it's actually some whatever metric 7/8 is, loose, so that's good. While I'm going to be monkeying with stuff on the port, I went ahead and set up the starboard to go ahead and start pumping out. You know, multitask the best you can. Oil mat down under here because that's just pretty much a guarantee to spill no matter how hard you try. So I've got that set up. Got some solo cups. Just gonna stick that back in there to mitigate any chance of debris falling. Already broke this loose down here. Got my 7/8 box wrench, and yes, this is probably some sort of metric, but 7/8 fits. well, drop the plug right in the cup. That's really not what I wanted. Drain plug does have a copper crush washer, so keep that in mind. Well, the good news is I don't see any chunks this time, because the first time I did this, and I don't know how long it had been serviced prior, there was definitely some material in here that you don't want to see in a transmission fluid. Actually pretty happy with that. So got a little over 3 quarts out with the sucky pump, and I'm going to pour this fluid into the waste oil jug as well, just again kind of measure how much fluid actually comes out. And I did check the fluid level before starting all this, and I ran the boat. Everything was hot and warm, shut it down, you know, and checked the fluid level within a couple minutes, and it was just below full, so that was good there. So I believe these take about 4 quarts of fluid. So I'm going to get all this drained out and measure it. I did forget, if you're crafty, you can kind of wedge the solo cup under the bottom of the transmission, and you see why I put the absorbent mat down, because spilling is pretty much a guarantee, at least when I'm working on things. So this is sitting in there just like that, and what I do is I'll just stick my finger and I'm able to pull it out. I mean, it doesn't look too bad at all. I don't even see any debris on it. So just gonna, I mean, just the tiniest of metal flakes, which is not surprising because there's a magnet on this one. So we're gonna make sure we get this really cleaned off. And you know, there's certainly some material on it. Way better than the last time I found it. So is there an issue? Maybe, but it's not getting worse. And there's not a ton of hours on this fluid. There's maybe 60 or 70 hours. So, you know, that's not, I don't think that's horrible, all things considered. All right, so magnet and 36mm plug are good. Drain plug looked fine. Gonna squirt the screen off, which probably unnecessary because it really didn't even look too bad there. Now there is a copper O-ring on the drain plug, there is a copper O-ring stuck down for the big plug here. It's in place and it's tight. I'm just going to leave it. I don't think there's a direction to this. They look identical on side to side. So that goes back in. Dropping the drain plug or dropping the screen plug is optional and not recommended. So that looks good. That can go back in. Okay, I'm going to thread it in nicely by hand all the way to the bottom. I think we should be pretty much right on the money where we need to be. I mean, I haven't had to add fluid or anything like that, but it's always good to do a sanity check here. And of course, there's, you know, some spillage and some residual in the container. And honestly, that was right at 4 quarts. Yeah, that's that's pretty darn good, right where we should be. So now I know I can just go ahead and dump a gallon right back in there. All right, so I'm gonna get all this cleaned up. That one is pumping. So I'm gonna put all this back together, get this tight, then we'll switch over to the starboard side and I'll catch you guys back there. Breaker bar. Oh, goodness. Oh, there we go. So if you're gonna do this, just go ahead, get the breaker bar, cheater pipe out. Otherwise, good luck. I don't know why those are so tight. I've had these off before and I did not use the breaker bar to put that back, so wow. All right, let's get a fresh pair of gloves. I'm gonna get the drain plug broken loose as well. I can't even see. Well, for what it's worth, that wasn't tight. Not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. That was not super tight. All right. Okay. This one looks pretty clean too, and the starboard transmission has had really good oil reports, and it should, because this transmission's brand new. There's less than 200 hours on this transmission. There might be less than 150 hours on it. There's about 100 hours on my use, and I think the owner prior to me ran the boat for some sea trials with this new transmission, and that was it. So there actually might be barely 100 hours on it now that I think about it. So this should have nice clean fluid, and this should look brand new. Very little on the magnet. If anything, kind of better but similar to the starboards. I'm sorry, similar to the port side, and the port side is questionable based on the oil reports. Same thing here. The copper crush ring is painted to the transmission, so it's still there. But I think I'm just going to go ahead and stick this back now. This looks totally fine. I'm going to put brake clean on it. There ain't a single thing on this screen here, so I'm going to just stick that back in there. Screw this on. I don't know what a torque spec is, but that's pretty darn tight, and I don't see the need to go any tighter. Hopefully someone can yell at me in the comments of what a torque spec is supposed to be for that, but that is pretty darn tight. Just check one more time. Yeah. So I'm not the world's strongest guy, but let's just say I can lift an 8D battery up and out of these holes, so that's pretty tight. All right, we are still sucky pumping away. We got about 2.5 quarts out in the jug from the first sucky pump go around, and he ought to be getting close, but the drain plug's loose. You know, right down in there. So I'm gonna let the sucky pump do its thing, going to pull the drain plug and let the rest of the fluid out. I've already done that once. You all need to see it. I will bring you guys back when I'm going to put fluid into the transmission.
About the same time?
100%. If you can, hit that subscribe button for me for many more videos to come. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.